I'm standing in the United States. My hotel's just a few miles that way, also in the United States. But to get there by road, I'd have to cross not one, but two international borders. Or I could just fly, but even that isn't as easy as it sounds. Welcome to Point Roberts, America's strangest border town. But you see, the last commercial airline pulled out of Point Roberts quite some time ago, so if you don't want to have to go through two international borders, the only way to get over there is to come here to Boeing Field in Seattle. From there, Point Roberts is a short 1 hour flight away on San Juan Airlines, but you're not exactly getting to fly on a 737. Ready? Cool. Take your bag. Getting to Point Roberts is half the battle. If you don't want to drive into Canada and then back into Point Roberts, it's not that easy to get to. There's no ferry and no scheduled flights, so the only other way is to take an air taxi. San Juan Airlines fly Cessna 172s all around the San Juan Islands, and it's the quickest way to get there, albeit far from the cheapest. I'll talk about that in a bit. But after an hour's flight, I got my first views of one of the least accessible towns in America. The short airstrip here is set amongst the trees, meaning to land here you've not only got to avoid Canadian airspace, but also make a low approach between the treetops, making sure not to hit any of them. Put it this way, I'd rather it was him flying the plane than me. But either way, we'd made it, and we were here on the ground at Point Roberts Airport. As I watched the plane head off for its next trip, I just had everything crossed that I'd be seeing it again later that day to take me back to Seattle. Alrighty then, welcome to Point Roberts Airpark here in Point Roberts, Washington. And well, let's be honest, it's not the biggest airport I've been to. It's got a grass strip down here, a really gnarly approach through these trees here. You have to weave through the tall trees, and this is the entire airport. It's just a hangar with a few planes. But this is the only way in and out of Point Roberts if you don't want to have to go through two international border crossings. So let's go and explore what is here in this little town and how people live out here with being in America but not being in America. Well, let's go and have a look. I'm literally just walking out of the airport and there is a deer up here. Oh dear. Hello, Mrs. Hello, Mrs. Deer. I'm going that way, bud. I'm going that way. A little deer. First things first, it was time to go and grab some snacks.
So we don't have much right now. We're actually trying to empty out the store.
How are you? Okay.
Yep. We're going to renovations in a couple weeks.
Oh, nice.
Excited for that.
Thanks a lot. So this right here is the whole reason that Point Roberts is in the conundrum that it finds itself here at the bottom of the Sowerson Peninsula, because you see that there, that's Canada, just across that yellow line there. This is the international border between the US over here and Canada just over there. Across that line on that street, there's Canadians going about their daily life, drinking milk from bags and whatever else Canadians do when they're not riding mooses. But this side is America, even though it's completely cut off from the rest of the country. And the reason goes back to the 1840s. You see, back in the 1840s, the British and the Americans came up with something called the Oregon Treaty, which established the fact that the US and Canadian border was going to be straight along the 49th parallel, which is great for most of the US and Canada, where there isn't a lot. But they didn't take into account the fact that here on the Sowerson Peninsula, it drops down south of the 49th parallel, pretty much where I'm standing now. As a result, the border was drawn straight across, cutting off this little town of Point Roberts here, because everybody simply forgot that it existed. The craziest part is you could literally just step across there into Canada, except you can't, because it's an international border and it is patrolled and monitored the entire length. There is no way in and out without going through the border checkpoint up that way to get into Canada. So people here in the south, on the US side, have got literally neighbours across the street that they can talk to across the border, but they can't go and visit. So I can't go any further up this road now, because right there is the border checkpoint between Canada over there and the United States here in Point Roberts, Washington. The thing is, to get into the rest of the US from here into Washington and beyond, you have to go across the border that way, cut all the way across Canada, and then come back in to Washington through another border checkpoint. 2 checkpoints just to get anywhere outside of Point Roberts. How much of a pain in the backside would that be? If I want to turn left out of here, I've got to go through Canadian customs. If I want to turn right, I've got to go through American customs. I am literally, if I step across that line, I'm in no man's land, in the middle of the two. So I'm going to go as far as this. I'm not going to go and get any further and start risking getting Canadian customs angry. I'm going to stay over here. But wow, let's go and explore the rest of this town, eh? This right here, by the way, is the boundary marker between Canada over there and America. Imagine living in that house. And that house apparently used to own this land here as well, but that meant that the international border went straight through their backyard. So they sold this section of land and put this boundary marker up right just here. Can you imagine living in that house? If you like just kick a ball over the fence, you can't exactly just pop over to your neighbours and grab it, can you? Without taking your passport. I just can't get over this. It's just Canada, America. Canada, America, America, Canada. Demarked by a fire hydrant and a yellow curbstone. One of the biggest international borders in North America. And that's it. Crazy. I've got to be so careful not to step across the line. I don't want to risk the wrath of getting in trouble with Canadian customs officers. And all these houses down here, they just back on to the States. Like at the bottom of their backyard is the international border. No big deal. Some people have a footpath at the back of the house. Some people have a next door neighbour to worry about at the back of the house. Here, you just got the United States at the bottom of your garden. Over there, in that garden, just behind that tree, there is a wild Canadian, just going about their business, watering their plants. Gotta be careful. Keep a low profile. You don't want to antagonise them. They will throw things at you. Now, because of Point Roberts' location just outside of Vancouver, little places like this are really popular here. It's a parcel drop-off store with mailboxes, and it's just literally a few hundred feet from the border into Canada. And a lot of Canadians rent mailboxes here and at other places here in Point Roberts, so they can get packages sent to them from within the US and not have to pay either international shipping fees or for things that might not be available in Canada. Fun fact for you, there are 40 times more mailboxes here in Point Roberts than there are the number of residents of Point Roberts, because of all the Canadians with mailboxes here. 40 times more. You know, walking around Point Roberts has got me thinking there's not just places that can end up feeling isolated. Sometimes people do too. And when you're struggling, reaching out for support can feel much more difficult than it should. That's one of the reasons I decided to start therapy. It's been really helpful to have someone to talk things through with and to learn healthier ways of dealing with stress instead of trying to carry everything on my own. If you've been thinking about trying therapy yourself, today's sponsor BetterHelp makes it really easy to get started. You simply answer a few questions online and they'll match you with one of their licensed therapists. If it turns out your first therapist isn't the right fit for you, well, you can switch to another at no extra cost. If you'd like to learn more, you can get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp by heading to betterhelp.com/Noel, that's betterhelp.com/NOEL, or by using the link in the description below. Huge thank you to BetterHelp for supporting the channel. Now let's go and see if I can get something to eat. You know, I think one of the things that surprised me the most about Point Roberts though is that, well, really, there's not a lot here. You know, there's no supermarkets, there's no hospitals or anything like that. If you want anything like that you'd get in a big town, well, you've got to leave Point Roberts and go into Canada for it, or go even further round and back into America. There's a school here, but it only goes up to the 3rd grade. From the 4th grade, the students have to cross 4 international borders a day just to get to school and back over in Blaine, Washington. And that raises a really important question, really. During COVID, Canada completely shut their border with the US, including the one here at Point Roberts, which meant that the peninsula was effectively completely isolated from the rest of the country. Nobody could come in, nobody could go out. There was no flights and no boats, so you were stuck here. If you wanted to go to hospital appointments and things like that, well, it was a bit of tough luck you were having because you couldn't go. Eventually though, Canada did open the border back with the US again, but even then they required COVID tests. So to get to the shops or to get to the hospital, well, you needed to have a COVID test. That didn't last for too long, they eventually got rid of it, but it just goes to show like how just something as simple as a border going across this town like this can potentially cut this town off completely from the rest of the country. All right, time to get back to the airport. I think I found where I need to get in. It's in here, so let's go and enter Point Roberts Airport and wait for my flight back. This is definitely the strangest airport entrance I've ever done before, but down a little footpath. Oh, I think I see where I was earlier, just over there. There's not exactly a lot to do here at the Point Roberts Airport. No duty free, certainly no lounges, so I was glad that the weather held off and eventually I heard the sound of a plane on approach. Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Are you Noel?
I am indeed, yeah. How are you?
Good. I'm Shalil, I'll be your pilot.
Hi, nice one.
to meet
Thank you, yeah.
And we're going to Boeing?
Just back to Boeing, yes,
Sounds
please,
good.
yeah.
It's good to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Have a good flight anyway,
you
yeah.
too, take care.
I'll see you later.
What's your channel?
Oh, Noel Phillips.
I thought you were Noel Phillips.
Did you?
'Cause I'm like, you've got the accent, Noel.
Yeah.
I just
Noel.
watched your video.
How do you spell?
Noel.
Okay, Noel. Okay.
Yeah, PHI. There you go, top one there.
YouTube. Got it.
Was it with net worth like I have?
I like it. That's like my name doesn't come up with a network.
All right, we'll be on our way and sweet.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm a chit chatter, so if you want to talk,
That's fine.
feel
Yeah,
free.
same.
If
Yeah,
you
no,
don't
no,
want to,
absolutely.
I can be quiet.
That's
Just
good.
let me know what you
That's
like
fine,
to
I
do.
don't mind. As we climbed away from Point Roberts, I couldn't help but think about just how unusual this place really is. On a map it almost looks like a mistake, a tiny piece of America accidentally left attached to Canada. And yet for the people who live there, it's simply home. Every trip to school, every hospital appointment, every grocery shop means dealing with international borders. During the pandemic, that border turned everyday life completely upside down, and yet despite all of that, the people I spoke to absolutely love living there. In fact, many jokingly described Point Roberts as America's most secure gated community. It may be one of the strangest towns in America, but after spending the day there, I can completely understand why the people who call it home wouldn't want to live anywhere else. As the Seattle skyline came into view, it was hard to believe we'd only left Point Roberts an hour ago. It's a place that's physically close to one of North America's biggest cities, yet because of an invisible line on a map, it feels a whole world away. And with that, our little adventure to one of America's strangest communities came to its end as we touched down back at Boeing Field. if you're wondering what all of this costs, well, the answer is $900 each way, with room for up to 3 people. For a unique day trip like this, it's an unforgettable experience, but for the people who actually live in Point Roberts, well, it's easy to see why driving through Canada remains the only realistic option. Well, here we are then, back in Seattle. Great little flight up to Point Roberts and back, exploring that little town that's very, very strange. But let me know what you thought to it down in the comments. Would you like to go somewhere like that? And is there anywhere else like that? Little anomalies around the world that would be interesting to visit? Well, let me know down in those comments. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. As always, take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.